P. Allen Smith's Garden Home is sponsored by the following.
Bonnie Plants.
Proven winners. Proven winners, providing new plants for the garden each year that are trialed and tested, selecting plants for blooms all season, both in gardens and containers. Proven winners plants can be found at your local garden center in their white containers.
Crescent Garden. Makers of weather-resistant, lightweight planters in a variety of decorative forms and finishes for any environment.
Arkansas, the natural state.
Your journey starts in Arkansas, the natural state. Vacation planning kits available at arkansas.com or 1-800-NATURAL.
Mind Farm. Mind Farm. We believe vital local food systems strengthen communities, enhance the quality of life, and safeguard the environment. Mind Farm, proud sponsor of public television and P. Allen Smith's Garden Home.
A hero's work is never done. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. You know, you don't have to be a superhero to get ahead of the curve with your home and garden. In today's show, we're going to focus on some super performers. These will make your life a lot easier, and you'll find that these will be some of the best sidekicks you've ever had. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the show. Today we're in the vegetable garden. That's where we're going to start. And we're going to focus on all things super, like superfoods, super ways to create things. And to help get us along with this theme is my great friend Alexis Jones. Hi, Alexis.
Hey, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing great. What do you think of the garden?
Oh, it looks beautiful. It's so full right now.
It has really plumped up since you were here last.
Yes, it has. Absolutely.
So, Alexis, with this theme in mind, what do you have in mind for the kitchen, and what are you extracting from the garden?
Well, I've got this beautiful rosemary. I was thinking about turning it into an oil, and then, oh, I know. And then I was thinking of a parsnip puree to go with it.
Lovely. I love parsnips.
Oh, yeah. It's a great time of year for them.
So you're going to create a puree, which is a super way to think about that root vegetable that doesn't get a lot of attention,
right,
which I find very delicious.
Incorporating it.
And then what about a superfood? What are some of your favorite superfoods?
Well, I love blueberries, kale, chard, spinach, all the leafy greens.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a big chard fanatic. You think you'll use some of that?
I would love to use some chard.
Well, here in the garden, there's some a variety that we're growing this year called peppermint chard, which is I find it really beautiful and delicious.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know what you think of it.
Oh, it's beautiful. I saw it. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. Good. Well, let's see what you come up with.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. There's a classification of foods that have a lot of antioxidants and good vitamins and nutrients, and they're classified as superfoods. Blueberries is a type of fruit that comes to mind quickly, but also greens like spinach, kale, and chard are all superfoods. So we decided to take some chard out of the garden, and since it's a superfood that is not utilized a lot, we wanted to put a recipe together using chard, but was a healthy version of creamed greens. The alternative to dairy was to make a vegetable puree. So I used parsnips and celery root and roasted them to get a little caramelization and bring out the sweetness of these great root vegetables. celery root, or celiac, is often a little intimidating to people at the grocery store. When you cut it, you want a smaller, even-sized cut so that they roast at the same time. And I go for about a 1/4 inch cut. Doesn't have to be perfect, it can be a rustic square. I took the diced celery root and parsnips and tossed each in oil and salt, and then laid them on a baking sheet to cook in the oven, 375-degree temperature. It takes about 20 minutes. You want to separate them because the celery root will take a little bit longer than the parsnips. You just want to make sure that they're fork tender. I took about half of a cup of both parsnip and celery root and blended them together with about a 1/4 cup of chicken stock and a tablespoon of butter. An alternative to chicken stock, if you wanted to keep it vegetarian, is you could use a vegetable stock. You could use water, and you could also use milk or heavy cream if you want to keep it richer. So I blended it to a smooth consistency, and you could take it a little bit further and add more stock and make a soup from there, or use the puree as a sauce itself. After the puree was finished, I took some shallots and the shard stems and sauteed them, and folded in the shard leaves with a little bit of the puree. And then I finished with some sherry vinegar and lemon. This dish could be substituted with other greens such as spinach or kale that are also, great superfoods.
Water is one of the most basic compounds there is, but it's also incredibly interesting. Water can exist, first of all, in solid, liquid, and gas all at the same time, which is kind of unique to most materials. Most materials can't. But you can have an ice cube, you can have steam, and you can have liquid water all together. Every plant needs water to live, every human needs water to live, and lots of foods have water in it and require water to make it. Cabbage leaves, they're made of mostly water, but they're also hydrophobic at the same time. So if you were to drop extra water on the outside of a cabbage leaf, it's actually going to roll off the side rather than absorb into the leaves because it has all it needs inside. Water covers most of the earth. It also makes up most of the human body. There's even water on Mars. But water is a pretty simple molecule when you look at it. A water molecule is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, or H2 to O. We have a couple of experiments you can do with water at home if you have the right materials. In fact, there's about 79.1 billion trillion molecules of water in this 8-ounce glass. So water is, kind of a big deal. But the first thing we're going to do is look at water's property of conductivity. It does conduct electricity, not really well, but pretty well. So I have a comb right here, and I'm just going to charge it up with electrons from myself. I'm just going to kind of comb this through. And when I hold this comb, this charged comb, the water does something kind of unique. You can try that at home if you have a plastic comb and a sink, which you probably do. Water is also kind of used a lot in other things, gardening, for example. But it's not really that fun to always have to water your plants, so what if we had a material that could hold water really, really well? Well, maybe we do. I have a cup here, and I'm going to just open this plastic bottle of water and pour it in here. Now, there's a lot of water in that cup, but you're not going to see it. The reason why is because of a chemical inside the cup called polyacrylate. Polyacrylate is a super-absorbing polymer that can hold 400 times its own weight in water. So, when we pour this water into this cup, you can see it right before your eyes. That water turns that solid powder into kind of a gel right here. So you can hold water for the root systems of plants, I'm told. Now, The last thing I want to show you is really, really hot water. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, boiling doesn't mean hot, it just means highest temperature. And 212 degrees is the highest temperature that water can reach before it evaporates. I have a skillet here that is heated up to around 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Actually, it's at about 310 degrees Fahrenheit now, so it's much hotter than the boiling point of water. Now, when I drop a little bit of water onto this skillet, it's not going to evaporate so quickly because that surface is so hot that it's going to begin turning to gas before it even touches it. So that water will kind of like skittle around the skillet on a little cushion of steam. This is something you can try at home if you have a stainless steel skillet. You don't want to use non-stick skillets because when they heat up too high, they can release off fumes from that non-stick material. So the next time you're in the garden giving your plant some water, or not giving them some water if you have some polyacrylate, you'll remember a couple of the amazing things that water can do.
Ted, there are concerns everywhere about water usage these days. You seeing that in the nursery business, people looking more and more for plants that are not quite so thirsty?
Sure, absolutely, Alan. In California in particular, there's just no rain. We haven't had any rainfall,
Yeah,
water,
I know,
and so
I've
more and
seen the
more
news.
people are looking towards drought-tolerant material for their yards and landscaping.
Well, you don't really have to give up on beauty if to take some of these drought-tolerant plants into your garden.
No, absolutely not. For example, lantana here,
Gosh, look at that color.
and festuca, and if you compare the two types of plants, they're so different in their structure and color.
Yeah.
And
Look at the texture. Yeah,
exactly.
so this is the sea urchin fescue.
Correct.
Yeah, that is just gorgeous. Absolutely. And then there are the sedums, so many of these succulents, I guess I should say, in that whole category. Those
Sure.
that actually hold water in their tissue.
Exactly, and we're seeing that being used more and more in the landscape, and agave certainly.
Oh, agaves, they're so architectural.
And they come in so many different shapes and sizes.
So Ted, if someone's looking for some bloomers,
Sure.
really into flowers, what are some good examples of drought-tolerant plants that you find are popular here?
Gazania, for certain, is really popular. The trailing yellow, you see it along a lot of freeways and interstates, along with the purple lantana.
That purple lantana is amazing.
And it is a great plant.
Yeah.
It is. It'll grow almost anywhere with
Uses so little water.
so little water. It blooms so profusely.
You know, Ted, when you're thinking about these drought-tolerant plants, if you think of areas of the world that are dry, often the plants that come from there are going to be suitable to the conditions that we have today with little water, like the Mediterranean. So many herbs come from there.
The obvious choice being rosemary, I suppose, at the top of the list.
Lavender.
Right.
We even use oregano.
I've got oregano in my cactus garden, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I grow it as an ornamental. It doesn't take any water.
These are all great super savers, I guess we could call them.
Super savers, absolutely.
Very good.
Perfect, yes.
I love berries. Just about any kind you can name, I'm crazy about them. Look at these blueberries, and they're in good company. Just behind them, you can see we're finishing up a raspberry crop. Delicious. Let's get back to the blueberries for just a moment. You see, you might call these nature's little superheroes when it comes to nutrition. They're just packed full of vitamins and antioxidants. They're really good for you. And blueberries can be a little challenging to grow, but if you get a few things right, they're actually pretty easy. Now, you may want to keep in mind that blueberries require 2 different varieties to pollinate and set fruit like this. So you need at least 2 varieties of these, which isn't such a bad idea. Not only is the fruit really attractive, but in the fall, these plants have beautiful foliage. It just looks like it's on fire. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind for the culture of blueberries. They like really acidic soil. So a lot of blueberry farmers use ammonium sulfate. That helps to make the soil a little more acidic. Also, you want to plant them kind of high in a really loose kind of soil. I tend to like to berm them up or put them in raised beds, as you see here. And then we use a straw mulch, but you can use compost or anything like that to help keep the soil consistently moist. There are lots of varieties, and there are lots of varieties being developed all the time. So there's a blueberry out there for you. They also grow well in containers, so don't let space be a limitation for you growing these wonderful fruits. You know, I can't say enough good things about blueberries. They're the perfect food and easy to grow. Whether you have room or not, remember, try to grow some in containers. Hey, I just about have enough here for a pie. I'm in beautiful Newport, Rhode Island. It's well known for its gorgeous beaches, outstanding views, and lavish mansions where the idea of too much is just enough was followed to the nth degree. Now, one of the things that you may find interesting here, some of these mansions are not so well known. There's one tucked in the hills of Newport that really has a magical quality. And the dwellers of this estate, well, they play an important role in the preservation of heritage livestock.
SVF Foundation, or Swiss Village Farm Foundation, was developed in the early 1900s as a working farm. Arthur Curtis James and his wife developed this property to house his prize-winning herd of Guernsey cattle. And it was a working farm until the 1940s. It changed hands several times, and it was purchased in 1998 by Mrs. Dorrance Hamilton, who is a philanthropist, and she's done a lot here in Newport. She wanted to preserve the property, and she collaborated with Tufts University to set up this nonprofit foundation which preserves endangered breeds of livestock.
My name is Rocky Steves. I'm the resident manager here at SVF. I do a little bit of everything, but one of the more fun things I get to do is work in the garden and play with the chickens. You know, when you think about the way these birds live out here on this property, I mean, they're in what would be considered an estate among the animal kingdom for sure. The buildings in this part of the village all have steam-bent cedar shingles that were constructed to emulate thatched roofs as you'd see in Europe back in the 1800s. And we raised the roof up a bit to make it easier for folks to walk around in there and see the birds. And it also has given the birds much bigger space than they might be used to if, say, it was in a more commercial area. We also, inside the buildings, went with what would be considered period lighting of the day, kind of the enamel stuff, and then the what we call the jelly jars, give the birds enough light during the day in the darker months. Chickens are a great way for people to see what the difference is of breeds within a species, and kind of helps a little bit of understanding heritage breeds that we're trying to preserve.
What if I told you there was a family of plants that make great cut flowers that you can use in the house? They're easy to grow. You can have a succession of blooms so you can cut anytime you want, well, within season and within reason. And that this plant comes back year after year. It's perennial. Well, that would be these lilies. I love the fact that these blooms are bicolored. They have a deep, rich sort of orange, almost red center that gives way to a lovely apricot at the edge. And then the little speckles, well, they add a lot as well. I love to arrange these quite simply with another flower form, like a hydrangea. It's white and creamy and has a completely different flower form. A big, round, ball-shaped flower contrasted with this. It's dynamite. Now come on over here. I want to show you a bed that's finishing up. Just take a look at these. These bloomed earlier. Now when you're thinking about lilies, think about this. What I have first are my Asiatics. They bloom first and they're finishing up here. Then come the LA hybrids. I just showed you one of those, first crown. And then the next are the Oriental hybrids to bloom. So you get this succession of bloom, early, mid, and late, which is great. Now, after they bloom, you see I didn't cut these for flower arranging. That is a seed head right there. What you want to do is just cut off your lilies like this and just discard the seed head. And what happens is you want to leave this foliage and bolster that bulb under there for next year's bloom. So that's the great thing about these lilies is they come back year after year. Now when you plant them, you want to make sure you give them plenty of sun. They like full sun, and the soil must drain well. Otherwise the bulbs will rot. So I just wanted to give you an example of lilies in a garden setting. Earlier I was showing you how I had them in rows for cutting for using in the house. But here they're part of the landscape. Here's First Crown in bloom with this backdrop of 9-bark, which is very beautiful. And if you'll look here below, this is the first wave of Asiatics that I've already flowered. And what I need to do today is take off the seed heads just as I showed you before, and I will leave the foliage. And next year, this display will come back. By the way, this variety down here is called Orange Pixie, and it bloomed about 2 weeks before these started flowering. So that's what I love in the garden, is that succession of color blocking, bold, bright bloom. Parsley, one of the most popular herbs in the world. But did you know that parsley can be much more than just some decoration on your plate? As a relative to celery, parsley is a lush plant growing up to 1 foot tall. I love to grow parsley as companions to annuals, perennials, and other herbs in beds, containers, and window boxes. The fresh green foliage makes a nice seasonal edging and provides a striking contrast to colorful annuals. Whether it's curly parsley or its flat-leaf Italian cousin, both of these types of parsley contain compounds that deliver some real health benefits. Parsley's volatile oils, particularly myristicin, have been shown to inhibit tumor formation and qualifies it as a chemoprotective food that can help neutralize particular types of carcinogens. In addition to its volatile oils, parsley is an excellent source of vitamin A and one of the most important B vitamins, folic acid, which we all know is good for your cardiovascular health. So why relegate parsley to a garnish? Get creative and make it your new best friend. You know, I think it's safe to say that the idea of super can take many forms. Power foods, easier ways to take care of your garden. These everyday heroes can have a big impact on your routine. So whether you choose to don a cape or keep it subtle, take the time to make your life a little more super by improving the environment around you. You might be surprised by the results.
Allen Smith's Garden Home is sponsored by the following.
Bonnie Plants.
Proven winners. Proven winners, providing new plants for the garden each year that are trialed and tested, selecting plants for blooms all season, both in gardens and containers. Proven winners plants can be found at your local garden center in their white containers.
Crescent Garden. Makers of weather-resistant, lightweight planters in a variety of decorative forms and finishes for any environment.
Arkansas, the natural state.
Your journey starts in Arkansas, the natural state. Vacation planning kits available at arkansas.com or 1-800-NATURAL.
Mind Farm. Mind Farm. We believe vital local food systems strengthen communities, enhance the quality of life, and safeguard the environment. Mind Farm, proud sponsor of public television and P. Allen Smith's Garden Home.
More information about today's topic and other topics covered in this series can be found at plsmith.com.